how are you doing? I'm doing great because today we're here with my March wrap up. February was a bit of a flop, but in March I managed to pull things back around. Like honestly, my ratings are still like relatively low, but I felt like much more enthusiastic about reading and about what I read during the month. So I don't know. I got out of that slump and the vibes were good. I do have to say that there was like a chunk in March in which I did not read a single page because I was just so sick. But overall, read a lot. I had a great time doing so, and I'm very excited to keep that vibe going for April. So let's just get into things with my stats. In March, I read 14 books, which amounted to 4,682 pages read, which is an average of 334.42 pages per book and an average of 151.03 pages per day. For the format, we have 2 books I own, 3 ebooks, 4 library books, 5 galleys from Nagali. And for star rating, we have 4 2 stars, 4 3 stars, and 6 4 stars, which is an average rating of 3.14. So again, not the highest, but we're getting there. And for age range, I read 1 middle grade, 6 young adults, and 7 adult books. Then for genre, we have a little bit of everything, and I think that's also why I enjoyed reading so much this month, is that I had such a variety. We have 1 graphic novel, 3 contemporaries, 1 horror, 2 mystery thrillers, 4 fantasies, 1 comic, and 2 non-fictions. So yeah, let's just get into all of the books that I read this month, starting off with The Baker and the Bard by Fern Haught, which I gave 1 of 5 stars to, and I got from Nagali. This was such a lovely graphic novel. Like I felt warm like giving it a 5 star because I didn't love it and I wasn't obsessed with it. I just thought like amazing, but like also I got no complaints. It's a 4 star. It's a very fun, cozy fantasy graphic novel. It's very cozy. It's very heartwarming and chill and it's so nice. I love the art. It's very queer as well, which I really enjoyed. Then I read The Perfect Guy Doesn't Exist by Sophie Gonzales, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to, and as a galley I got from Nagali. This was one of my most anticipated releases of the year. Sophie Gonzales has always been a hit for me, and this premise just sounded so ridiculous and so fun, and that's exactly what this book ended up being. This book is very ridiculous, very fun. You very much need like to suspend your disbelief and just like go with the flow because some of the things that are happening in this are very ridiculous, but I had such a blast with it. And I do think at the core of this book is a very like honest and real character growth moment, like when it comes to a main character and her struggles and her kind of like coming to certain realizations in her life and what she wants from her life and stuff like that. I feel like all of that felt very grounded, and I feel like that's why, even though the story was very over the top and very ridiculous, it still managed to pull off everything because it was just drawn hard to it. Then next I read Motherthing by Ainslie Hogarth, which I give 2 out of 5 stars to, and this one I find a hard one to review because it is so out of my comfort zone, and it also is a book I just had very mixed opinions on because all in all I liked my time reading it. I liked my time reading it. I was gonna say enjoyed, but it's like it's a weird book. It's very stream of consciousness, and like nothing about it is really fun. And it gets very disturbing towards the end, but I did really like it while I was reading it, and once I got used to the writing of it a little bit, I actually read it relatively quickly and it wasn't that difficult to read either. I just think that it failed in its setup in a way. And next I read The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice, which I gave 1 of 5 stars as soon as I got a galley from Nagali. Janice is another author I really enjoyed books from before. The Appeal is one of my only 5-star mysteries, so again I was really excited to read this book, and I really enjoyed it. It's not a 5-star, it was great. It is mixed media. Typically Janice Hallett's novels are also mixed media, but like The Appeal is very heavy on emails. There are some text messages throughout, but mainly it's emails. And then the Twyford Code is all voice recordings until like the very end is a little bit different. But The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels is like emails, text messages, recordings. It's everything mixed to each other, which I thought was a really fun change of pace because it kept the book engaging and like quick to read and fun to read because you had like different things going on. And I did think that was a really fun way to tell the mystery, and I really liked seeing all of the things unfold and having our main characters kind of come up with theories and you come up with theories yourself. I think Janice Hallett is great with that. That's my favorite thing about reading her books. is trying to like put pieces together myself. I feel like she does a great job at giving you everything and like letting you figure things out yourself, and then having the characters also figure it out. I think that that's what makes her book so fun to me. So this also had that to a great extent, and I was really compelled by reading and trying to figure it out. I thought the mystery was really great and the reveals of it were just top notch. The main reason why I didn't love it is because I do think that for quite a big chunk of this is really slow moving. Then next I read Night of the Dragon by Julie Kagawa, which I gave 2 to 5 stars to. This is the final book in the Shadow of the Fox series, and I started the series years ago and I finally got around to finishing it, but this just was not my thing. I do think this is a decent enough finale if I just cared more about like these characters or this world, but I just have such a disconnect from it throughout the entire series. It just never really worked for me, and I just pushed through because I love Julie Kagawa and so many people love this series, so I wanted to see what it was all about, and I get it, but it wasn't for me. It didn't work for me, and this book, it just was the ultimate thing of that. I can tell you it's a good book, it just completely missed the mark for me, and it just didn't work for me. And next I read This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, which I gave 4 to 5 stars to the Gallagher from Nangali. This is the second book in this Kylan series. I really enjoyed the first book in this series. It's all contemporary romances. They're more like hard-hitting, I would say, and I really enjoyed that first book when I read it 2 years ago, I believe it came out. So I was really excited for this one, and I again really enjoyed it. I didn't absolutely love it. I did enjoy this more than the first one though. It just worked for me a little bit better, but it's not like a 5-star. I didn't love it, but I did really enjoy this, and I do highly recommend it. Like I said, it's very hard-hitting and it deals with some more serious topics. It's very involved in our main character Soledad's like personal journey, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was really well done, and her love for her family and everything, I thought that was just absolutely brilliant. I really liked the romance. I thought it was very hot and steamy, but also having a great like emotional connection and a great bond. The only complaint I really had is I didn't really feel like the guy main character, I already forgot his name and that just showcases this issue. I didn't really feel like he was that much of a developed character, and I just wanted more from him, especially because Soledad is such a strong character, and this is dual POV, so technically I shouldn't have an issue with this. I should know both characters equally, but I feel like I don't know that much about the guy. Then next I read In Vuur and Vlam by Renée, Rienties and Danny de Vos, which I give 5 stars to. This is the second comic in the Camille series, and honestly the first one took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this much because this is not for my target demographic like at all, but I love Camille, and you know, I love the art style in this as well. That's what most of those 2 stars go to, because the art style in it is absolutely gorgeous. But that first issue actually was a lot of fun, and I had a bright smile on my face the entire time while reading it. I also thought it dealt with some important topics, like broached it a little bit. So I was excited to continue on with this, and this one just didn't work for me. I didn't think it was very good. The dialogue, I often just felt off and weird, like that's not how people talk. I just felt a bit cringy. The storyline is just completely unrealistic and also a slightly dangerous message to send to kids. Then next I read the Psychopath Test by Jon Ronson, which I give 2 to 5 stars to. This one has been on my TBR forever, and I just never really got around to it, but I finally pushed myself to do it, and I liked it. The main reason I picked it up is because I had heard so many great things about this book, and I think it was interesting, and I think it discusses its topics decently enough, and I learned a lot while reading this. I also like Jon Ronson's writing style. It is very easygoing and very fun. You can definitely like see his personality throughout it all, and I thought that was great. It's just that this book at times felt a little bit disjointed, and I had a hard time kind of not following along, because that's one, but kind of like connecting the dots, if that makes sense. I don't like reviewing nonfiction, but I did read another nonfiction. That's This Autistic Girl Went to Japan by Bianca Toeps, which I give 2 to 5 stars to. This author's like debut memoir I absolutely loved, so I was excited to see that she came out with a new book. And this one I had similar issues with as with the Psychopath Test, is that it felt so kind of like unorganized at times. I do think the topic at hand was very interesting. This is about the author's move to Japan mid-pandemic and kind of the struggles that came along with that, and I do think that was really interesting, especially also with the perspective of her being autistic and her autism also kind of like playing parts it takes. And I really do think that Shirley was very interesting, and her writing is really great. Again, very like personality driven writing, and I just enjoyed that still. That hadn't changed for her debut memoir, but it just at times it kind of also felt like it was jumping around a little bit, and it could be hard to kind of like track the thought progress that went behind everything. Then the next book that I read is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which I gave 5 stars to. Apparently March was a month of knocking books off my TBR that I've been on there for a very long time, because this is another one that's been on my TBR for ages and I just never got around to it. But I finally did, and I'm so mad at myself when I got into it sooner, because this was so good. This is so close to a 5 star. It just barely wasn't, because if I'm being honest, while I was reading most of this book, it felt like a 4 star, and those last like 150 pages or so like really pulled it up a level for me. But like the reveals and things that were happening and kind of like threats, I was able to connect to each other and like stuff like that, and it blew my mind and my heart was racing, and so much happened in those last 150 pages or so, and those are definitely a 5 star, and like everything before it is a 4, so it felt wrong to give this a 5 star rating, but it's so damn close. I need you to know that, because this was so good. It is such, again, this is one that took me a little bit to get into, but it's also because I'm just like not used to like adult high fantasy writing and world building and everything. So I feel like if you are more well versed in that realm of reading, this might be an easier time to get into. But it took me a little bit. On like the first 100 pages, I wasn't that sold on it. I was enjoying it, and I was reading more comfortably than I was expecting. But like after that first 100 page mark, I like really got into this and I became obsessed with it, and I really just enjoyed, like genuinely enjoyed reading it. I think the world of the Mistborn and like the way like the magic works with the metals and everything is so incredibly interesting. I really liked their characters. I thought the plot was really interesting, and like I said, like those last 150 pages where like shit hits the fan is like everything to me, and I'm so incredibly excited to continue on with the series. Then next I read Damsel by Evelyn Skye, which I gave it 5 stars to, the guy from Nangali. This just didn't end up working for me, and I do have to say I read this mainly because of the Netflix movie. This is kind of confused about how this works, because this came out a year before the movie, but if I remember correctly, it is written in tangent with like the movie being made, so it's not like the movie is an adaptation of the book. I don't know how it works, but because I really am intrigued by the movie, I also wanted to check out the book, and I got a guide away from that guy, so I thought, why not? And I finally got around to reading it now that the movie is out. And I do have to say, I do think the movie could still work for me. It's just that in writing form, this didn't work for me. I felt very disconnected from everything that was happening. I felt like the writing kept me at a distance, and the characters felt a little bit one-dimensional, which kept me from getting like fully invested into everything. But overall, I do think this is a very engaging story. Then next, I read One of Us Is Back by McManus, which I gave 5 stars to. And this was such a disappointment to me. I almost don't want to talk about it. This is the reverse of Night of the Dragon, which is a good book, just didn't work for me. This is a bad book that just worked for me in a way. Like, not worked really well because it's still a 2 star, but everything about this was just really bad. I felt like McManus like barely had a thought for this book, but still decided to write it because she was on the contract apparently. The mystery was very thin, and the reveals just felt very lackluster, because like there barely was any build up to anything, because the mystery was barely in this book. Almost nothing happened, and I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But as you know, this is the 3rd book in a series now, and I have grown such an attachment to these characters, and I enjoyed following them, and therefore I enjoyed reading this book still to some extent, because I just like spending time with them. And I do think that when it comes to like their personal lives, this did a great job at wrapping their stories up, if that makes sense. And then next we have Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, which I give 5 stars to, and this was a reread, and actually one that I bumped the rating up on reread, because originally I gave it 5 stars and now it's a 3, so there you go. But I honestly, when I originally read the series, after this book is when I DLF'd it, because I never planned to DLF it. I just never got around to like the next book, because I was just so demotivated by this one. But this time around, it's got me so hyped to continue on with the series, and I can't wait to pick up book 4, because the way this ended is just amazing. Like honestly, the most fun I've had reading this series has been like the last chunk of this book because it got so good. I just think it is a journey to get there, and that journey is not always as good. And yeah, let's just talk about the final book I read this month, and that's Terms and Conditions by Law and Asher, which I gave 1 of 5 stars to, and I just really enjoyed this. This is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaires. I read book 1 last month, and even though I was like the biggest fan of that, I didn't really enjoy it and was excited to continue on with the series. I'm so glad I did because this one I really loved. It's quite a chunker, but I read it in one day because I just was so addicted to reading this book and I didn't want to put it down. It is a very readable book. Like the writing just like flows so nicely and it goes by so quickly, and it's just so much fun. And I really loved Iris and Declan, our protagonists within this book, and I loved their romance and how it was developed in this book. It is a marriage of convenience, workplace romance, and I don't know, I really loved it, and the personal development of these characters was also really well done. I loved their back and forth, their banter, and just them falling for each other, which is so good. The only thing that I wasn't really a big fan of was the third conflict, and it almost got me to nuke this book because it was just so bad, but I feel like the resolution was so good and I feel like made the relationship stronger. So even though I want to be mad at the third conflict, like I can be fully. That is everything I have for you this month. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these books, if you've read them, as well as some of the books you read in March, and then hopefully I'll see you next time. Good. Here I am again, the same old situation. What does